Hello everyone, my name is Scomicmaker, and today we're going to be doing something that you guys have been asking me for a long time, and that, my friends, is how to draw faces. But we aren't just going to be breaking down faces. I'm going to show you how to break down the shapes and draw faces in 3 different ways: realism or semi-realism, anime style, and cartoons. Besides details and all that stuff, these 3 are a lot more similar in facial structure than you'd think. Keep in mind that all of these take time, practice, and patience. I have about 20 years of drawing experience, so it does take time, but you definitely can do it. So let's get drawing. We're going to start with realism and work backwards, since all cartoons and anime characters take from things in real life. I know that realism can seem super intimidating, but I want to show you some of the tools that you can use to draw portraits that can be applied to cartoons and anime and vice versa. To do this, we're going to start with this drawing of me. I normally have my hair down, but I really wanted to use a picture where my ears are showing so that we can use the ears as a guide when drawing. So to start, what you usually see people do when they are teaching how to draw a face is to draw a circle for the main part of our skull. Breaking down faces into basic shapes can be very helpful and make drawing seem less intimidating, especially if you're new at it. From here, I usually draw a chin or a letter U below the circle just as a placeholder until we get into specific facial features. If it helps you, I definitely recommend tracing over some actual photographs to help you break down the face yourself, but we'll get to doing it freehand in just a moment. Next, I usually draw a curved line from the top of the head down to the chin. This line will be a guide for the position of the nose, eyes, and mouth. If we're drawing this as a front view as opposed to a 3/4 view like this, that line would typically go down straight in the middle of the face so that you can make everything symmetrical. One day I'll definitely do a front view step-by-step on how to draw the face, but for this one, I really just wanted to talk about how some of the tools we can use for realism can be applied to cartoons. On the left side of the face, I made a mark where the circle meets the U shape for our chin. This mark is where our eyebrows will start. A second mark below it will help you indicate where the end of the eye comes in. You can curve these lines across the face to align it with the ear if it helps you, but we'll do a little bit more of that when we get to the freehand part of our portrait. Then voila! You just fill it in with a creepy eye, and there you have it. I'm just kidding. Let's take some of these ideas and elaborate more on it while we're drawing instead of tracing it. To begin, I start off with the circle shape again, now that we know that that's our base, and then created the chin with the U shape. From tracing the drawing before, I can see that the chin underneath the cheek curves in a little bit, so I went ahead and applied that to my sketch. I apply the markings where the circles meet the U shape for my eyebrows, and can see that the nose starts right underneath my circle, and the mouth starts about a finger space below, and I can use my smile lines as a guide from the sides of the nose to figure out how far the smile should go. I noticed that the side of the mouth kind of lines up with the side of my neck, so I marked that in too. I start using my other line markings to figure out where the inside and outside of the eyes will go and begin to draw my other facial features. I know it sounds a little bit intimidating, but it's kind of like doing a puzzle where you put in little pieces at a time, find out where things line up and where things match together. I do end up adding shading and some detail to the sketch as I go along, but mostly my goal here is to just get the basic forms of the face. But you'll see that I end up making some mistakes and adjusting as I go. So don't be discouraged. You might have to adjust, erase, or move things around too. You might have to do it a lot of times, but just keep plucking away at it until you get it right. I, in fact, end up making the eyes way too big in the end, but I think it at least looks like me a little bit. I use the line down the middle of the face to figure out how the teeth are shown in my smile and adjust a couple facial features too. Using the mark that I made underneath my eyebrows, I make a curved sketch above and below my line to draw my eyes. Oftentimes, I'll use other parts of the face to gauge if I have things in the right spot, like how I measure the end of my smile to the center of my eye, or the corner of my other eye lines up with the edge of my nose. This is basically the planning stage where you can adjust things as you go along. Next, a little bit down from the top of the head, I draw the hairline. This can be super important, especially when drawing characters. I would actually recommend having the hairline drawn earlier than when I did it in this drawing. It can really help you determine how much of the forehead that you want to show, and can be a great guide to helping you figure out where the hair should flow. As you go along, you can look at other lines in the face to help you map out where everything goes, like where the cheeks curve or where the jaw turns, things like that. Drawing really has no set structure that is right or wrong. It's all about tweaking and adjusting. This is where you can also add unique things to the drawing to make it look more like the person that you're drawing. For example, I got that booty chin, so I made sure to add a shadow there. At this point in the drawing, I spend more time adding shadows, and then I get into the hair. Because my hair is in a ponytail, it's a little difficult to show how the hairline can help you with the flow of the hair or bangs or things like that, but we'll get to that in a bit. But since the hair is in a ponytail in this, you can at least make directional lines towards where the hair meets the hair tie. At this point, I take the drawing and line it up over my actual face to see how close I am, and that's where I realize that there are a lot of adjustments that need to be made. Obviously, it's a little more difficult to do this traditionally unless you shine a light through the printed picture and your drawing or use a light box, but sometimes it can also help to take a photo of your drawing with your phone to look at it smaller and see if you need adjustments. Don't get discouraged. If it's your first couple times drawing a portrait, you're most likely to make some mistakes. Like I said, I've been drawing for so many years and even I make mistakes. In fact, this is the part where I realized that my eyes are way too big. Maybe I was just trying to draw anime after all, but I spent some more time adjusting and adding shadows until I end up with this. It's not the most realistic thing that I've ever done, but it at least looks close enough to me. Now, let's take some of the shapes and techniques that we learned and apply them to anime and cartoons. To do this, we're going to start off with Sailor Moon and Goku. Trying out our techniques from before, we start out with a circle, then go for the U shape of the chin. Not all anime is this way, but a lot of anime characters in general tend to have sharper chins, so for this you might want to go for more of a curved V than a U. From here, we can add some of our guidelines to determine where the eyes will go since they are much larger in the style. Also in this image, the angle of the face is more to the side, so our circle for Sailor Moon is also going to make up the back of her skull. With our guide in mind, we can then apply what we've gathered for a freehand sketch. Circle, V-shaped chin, facial guidelines, then plugging everything in. We got our ear, neck, eyes, nose, mouth, etc. The difference for this one though is that the facial guidelines that we're going to draw for anime characters apply more for the eyes than anything else. Eyebrows tend to go higher up on the forehead to emphasize expressions, kind of similar to what cartoons have too. But this also depends on the style of anime that you're going for, so sometimes anime can look a little bit more realistic in their facial proportions, so that's something to keep in mind too. But you know Sailor Moon got them big anime girl eyes. Here we go, right into her soul. Anyway, this part is where we can talk a little bit more about the hairline. If you part your hair directly down the middle and follow the hairline above your forehead, you can use those things as guides to create some really fun hair designs. Sailor Moon has two buns on her head, as well as long flowing hair, so just like the ponytail that I had, it's important to make directional lines that go from the part in the middle of her head towards the bun, since that's where all the hair gathers. Her bangs are going to curve rounded from her hairline, so we can start at the middle part to be our guide. She also has a tiara in her forehead, and since we want to make sure that that's shown, we can curve the bangs out in a C shape and a backward C shape to bring our attention there. Noticing things like different kinds of shapes or different kinds of lines can really help you break down characters so that they're easier to draw. Now let's move on to a more chiseled face shape like Goku's. A lot of shonen anime deals more on sharper angles as opposed to curves, so we'll keep that in mind as we draw him. After getting the circle down, I really notice how sharp the angles are on his jaw, cheek, and chin. We can also see a lot of sharp and straight lines in his hair. Using our guides, we can see that in relation to Goku's entire head, hair included, that where his face is in relation to everything else is actually pretty small. There aren't many details in his eyes, so we're going to emphasize his eyebrows, add our facial features, and move on to his hair. From our guide earlier, we can see that Goku's hair spikes basically come off directly from the circle that makes up his skull. So we'll use some sharper angles to add his bangs and the hair sticking out from the back of his head. Figuring out how to draw his body in a pose ready to fight might be getting a bit more into the anatomy of a character, so since we're just sticking to the face shapes of characters, we'll move into our final part of drawing where we will talk about cartoon faces. Much like anime being an exaggerated version of a human, cartoons push this to its absolute limit. If we look at the face shapes of cartoon characters over the years like the Rugrats, Johnny Bravo, Clarence, Powerpuff Girls, etc., we can see that while we know they're supposed to be humans or human-like, there are some crazy exaggerations in things like facial shapes and eyebrows that you can really get into playing with and have some fun. A great example of this is with Steven Universe. While we can see that his head shape starts off the same, things like his cheeks, teeth, forehead, eyes, and hair are exaggerated to their max. His mouth makes up a huge part of his face, his eyebrows are basically in the middle of his forehead, and his eyes are way bigger than his ears. But by exaggerating characters and characteristics with cartoons, we can make them emote in ways that we couldn't with regular humans. This can make funny scenes even more hilarious, and emotional ones so emotional to the point where you're gonna need a bucket for all those tears. And we all know with Steven Universe that the show is basically one giant emotion. So character designs like this and all the other crystal gems really shine here. Speaking of hilarious, this can of course be said for other shows like Teen Titans Go, where we basically have to give Starfire's head more of an angular egg shape. But it makes for really fun and interesting character designs. But as you can see, despite how complex a character design or idea might be, we can still break them down into basic shapes to draw them. Circles for eyes, pointed ovals for ears, teardrop shapes for eyebrows, doing that kind of Sailor Moon-esque bang thing at the hairline, and you have yourself a Starfire. Of course, this comes with trial and error. If you struggle still with sketching shapes or lines like you want to, don't fret and give it a shot anyway. The more you do it, the more confident you'll get at it. And of course, everyone says that practice makes perfect, but there are things that you can do to practice line confidence, whether it's digital or traditional. There's a great video by BAM Animation that I'll have a link in the description that goes over different drawing techniques that you can do to get better and more confident at digital inking, but I think some of their techniques can also apply to traditional drawing and inking as well. While I finish off with one last drawing of Marco from Star vs. the Forces of Evil, I know that this has been a mouthful and a lot to take in, especially if you're a beginner at drawing, but I hope that there was at least one or two things that you were able to see or hear that can help you the next time you try drawing a portrait, whether it be realism, anime, or cartoons. For real, you got this, and I can't wait to see what kinds of stuff that you guys draw. If you liked this video, please let me know what other kinds of drawing techniques or tutorials you'd like to see me talk about, or let me know some of the kinds of things that you struggle with drawing the most in the comments below. But that's it for me this week, guys. This might not be the most structured or technical way to go about drawing faces, especially since it was more of a 3/4 view, but these are just the things that I keep in mind when I'm drawing portraits. As always, videos like this are possible because of my amazing patrons and my bananas. I'm currently in the process of moving from Patreon to memberships right here on YouTube, and I'll leave an iCard here if you want to know how to get access to behind the scenes drawings, early access to videos, and members only emotes and badges. I appreciate you all stopping by, and I hope that we can draw together again soon. Bye guys.